So dudes, it's your boy Tuhu. Z3's been out for the past 3 or 4 weeks now, depending on when this video comes out, and so I want to get my first thoughts and initial impressions out there on what I think about the game real quick. And not gonna lie, after hearing people talk shit about this game during its opening week, let's just say that I'm rather personally motivated to get this video out as soon as possible. So let me start by saying this: I really like this game. This game is a huge vibe, and I think that MiHoYo knocked it the fuck out of the park with this one. They didn't just cook with Z3, they ascended to Master Chef status for this game. And the reason why I think that is because, in my opinion, they absolutely nailed the 3 most important aspects of a gacha game. The first being the gameplay, naturally. The best way to describe Z3's core gameplay is basically Wuthering Waves if you could counter almost any enemy attack. In my previous Wuthering Waves video, I said that the most fun aspect of Wuwa combat is the defensive play, specifically whenever you dodge an incoming enemy attack and the game gives you that satisfying dodge feedback. In Z3, you still have that since characters in this game can also perfect dodge incoming enemy attacks and then counterattack after, but you also get what's called the perfect assist, where instead of dodging, you press space on keyboard to sub in another character on your team who then blocks the incoming attack and then counterattacks. The best part of Z3's combat though is the chain attack mechanic, where you get multiple members of your team in on beating the shit out of enemies. I believe it triggers after you stun or daze any enemy. This is where you can either left or right click to bring in a second or third member of your team to attack, and if you're fighting bosses, even your Bangbu can get in on the action. Lastly, a lot of characters in this game have particular mechanics that give them something of a skill curve, which is rather rare in gacha games. Ambi and Soldier 11 are 2 examples of this. Ambi's skill has no startup frames and comes out almost immediately if you use it after specific moves. The easiest combo where she has this is 3 normals into a charge attack, or whatever the hold attack button is called, into her EX skill. Soldier 11 has enhanced normal attacks if you hit a certain attack timing or rhythm, where she'll deal fire damage instead of her usual physical damage if you get it right. If you get good at this, you essentially give your Soldier 11 access to her skill even when she doesn't have enough energy to use it yet. So you put all these gameplay mechanics together and you get a game that feels very exciting, thrilling, and rewarding to play. It's still got your typical gacha simplicity, yeah, but there are just enough mechanics for you to think about and engage with to keep you occupied without making you feel overwhelmed. And they're big and flashy and exciting to watch. For a bit of a tangent here, this is why I think Z3 is actually a really good stream game. Arguably the best stream game now out of the 3 big Hoyoverse titles. All the flashy, combat mechanics and the animations in Z3, in my opinion, just straight up blow Genshin and Star Rail out of the water in this context. There's just really no contest here. On that note, actually, another huge reason why I think Z3 is a great game is its animations. This game has the best animations I've seen in any gacha game, to the point where I'm pretty sure that's where most of this game's budget went. I keep joking in my stream that MiHoYo poached animators from Pixar or something to work on Z3. This gives Z3 so much goddamn personality, man. Every character in this game feels unique and fresh, especially when they show up in the story proper during animated cutscenes. Just taking your starting squad for example here, Nicole is your hot pink-haired girl with big tits who's the brains for your squad, but has her clumsy moments here and there. Ambi's the quiet but lethal girl who's also a huge movie buff and has a sense of humor drier than the Sahara Desert. And Billy is the Dante core lovable dumbass who spends half his screen time, doing or saying something stupid, and spends the other half being a dual gunslinging sentient robot named after an infamous American outlaw. Even the NPCs showed us too, with, the arcade owner, the music store manager, the robot coffee barista, the ramen chef, and the Bangbu upgrade guy over at the remodeling shop. Not only that, but Z3 also has a modern aesthetic. As in a world that's not set in a fantasy land like Genshin is, or in the far cosmic future like Star Rail is, but rather something that's much more grounded to our own reality. Granted, you still have, anime guys and girls running around with superpowers, the little Bangbu guys being, well, silly little guys. Entirely different races, like Oni girls, cat girls, furries, robots coexisting with regular humans, and the main bad guys known as the Ethereals or something, who are like, zombie aliens or something, I don't know. But it's still the most relatable setting that MiHoYo has done thus far. Combine these with the overall, street vibes and the hip-hop inspired soundtrack, and this game practically slaps you in the face with, one hell of an identity. It's one of those games where it feels fun just running around in, being a part part of its world. No wonder they did that one video collab with, what, Street Fighter 6, I think it was? All this to say, the second aspect of gacha games that should be good is the overall vibes, or at the very least, a clear, stylized identity, and obviously Z3 provides that in spades. And the third part is character design. Now, MiHoYo already has top-tier character design as they've demonstrated in their previous 2 games, but they've upped their game even further for Z3. Their debut roster consists of characters like a cat girl, a robot dude who gains sentience and runs around cosplaying Deadpool, a blue-skinned Oni girl, a wolf guy who's really into bondage for some reason, and a huge fucking bear. Even the more normal human characters have their charm too, with the more standout ones being, the engineer girl who obsesses over her robots like a doting mom and calls shooting nails from a nail gun and chucking grenades a martial art, and an introverted tsundere shark girl who works as a maid as a part-time job and throws an ice spear at bad guys as part of her resume. And with the animations that we discussed earlier, each character oozes their own personality and quirks that make them easily identifiable, and therefore makes it easy for players to come and find somebody that they really like. And in gacha games, as we know, all it takes for you to start playing one is to find a character in those games that you really like, and it's all over for you, as Miss Akuma Nimine can testify to, at least before she rage quit Z3 after wailing for Grace in Standard and not getting her. Another tangent here, but I also really like how most, if not all, characters in Z3 belong to a certain faction, and that it's usually pretty easy to tell which faction they belong to, right, judging by their clothing. The maid girls and the furry butler are part of Victoria Housekeeping. Anybody who's got some kind of tool on them is part of Bellabog Heavy Industries. The 2 punk girls are probably a part of some street or biker game that I'm not currently aware of. Haven't gone to that part of the story yet, I guess. The blue Oni girl is a part of a special task force called Section 6 that deals with the hollows in-game, and our next 2 limited characters at the time of me writing the script belong to the police faction, more commonly known as public security or just PubSec for short. This sort of categorization instantly gives characters connections and ties to one another simply by being part of the same group. And since there aren't that many characters in the game yet, and each individual faction seems to be relatively small, this gives the roster a much more intimate and close-knit vibe than, say, a game like Genshin Impact, where a lot of characters don't really have that much to do with each other, even if they're from the same nation, and oftentimes belong to like fringe groups or something, that are for the most part detached from the rest of their fellow nationals. Alright, so I've gushed about Z3 for long enough. Let me also talk about what I don't like about the game so far, for fairness' sake. First, it takes way too long for the game to introduce you to its gacha game mechanics. Like, they do bring up the actual gacha part pretty quickly, because of course they would, because they want you to start spending money on the game as soon as possible, but more annoyingly, it takes an unusually long time for the game to, introduce you to things that are actually important, such as, unlocking your dailies and how to do your dailies and where to go use your stamina, since, as usual, MiHoYo takes their own lore way too fucking seriously, and they gotta make sure that everything makes sense in universe. Like, I get it, it adds to the immersion, right, which I know I talked about earlier being important and all that, but bro, it feels like every new story chapter you're getting a new tutorial that teaches you what this mechanic does, or a new feature that you've unlocked, and now the game's gonna spend the next 20 fucking minutes explaining that shit to you, when you just want to keep playing the goddamn game. Not to mention, the order in which they unlock new mechanics and game modes to you is also kind of weird. Like, things like the Bangbu remodeling shop and the accompanying Bangbu gacha, right, the music store that functions like Genshin's Artifact Strongbox and the Hollow Zero game mode that's essentially, simulated universe and Star Rail, should be things that get introduced to the player as soon as possible, or at least you'd think so. But like, they take their sweet fucking time doing that and instead introduce you to other shit first, like, I don't know, the officer in the full body catsuit or whatever, and the arcades and shit like that. Like, what kind of fucked up priority is that? Like, considering these are staple mechanics of gacha games that we're talking about here, like, your dailies, your weeklies, how to spend your stamina and where to go do it, like, MiHoYo should introduce these more core aspect of gacha games to the players first, and then worry about, introducing the more goofy or like the less significant, or at least the more permanent features later. Second, a minor gripe, but I'm not a huge fan of how the colors look in this game. Specifically, I feel like all the colors feel kind of washed out in the actual environment itself, or that there's not enough contrast between the different colors in the game. I think that if Z3 were the first MiHoYo gacha that I ever played, then this wouldn't be as big of an issue. But as someone who started both Genshin and Star Rail from, both the beginnings of those games, and still plays both, by the way, those two games have fantastic color palettes and coloring and contrasts. So I can't help but notice that Z3, for whatever reason, didn't get the same treatment. To be fair, I can ignore this since the overall aesthetic of Z3 is so striking that it easily distracts me from the problems that I have with its colors and contrasts, but how a game looks does contribute a lot to its overall vibes, especially for gacha games, and so I do think that Z3 would benefit from having better color saturation or something, or contrasting, or whatever the technical term is. Lastly, everyone's favorite TV gameplay. For those of you who don't play or haven't played Z3 yet, part of Z3's gameplay involves you interacting with these mazes of sorts that are made of old CRTs, where you control a Bangbu to navigate your way through them and often, attack enemies along the way. A lot of players don't like this gameplay because it can become very tedious and you have to do a lot of it just going through story. Personally, I don't really mind myself because it reminds me of other roguelike games that I played before, so I honestly kind of fuck with them. My problem though is that you're so often interrupted by, story dialogue and events that it takes longer to go through them than what's necessary. MiHoYo just needs to speed up how fast you can go through those TV game modes, like not putting in so much unskippable dialogue for one, and they won't nearly be as annoying, I think. Quick addendum, because there's a third problem that I want to bring up. Checking your Bangbus is kind of a pain in the ass. If you want to upgrade your Bangbus or even just look at them or check to see which ones you have to go all the way back to the remodeling shop just to do that. Unless I'm mistaken, I just don't know where to look, there's no way to see all of your Bangbus at a glance in your inventory like you can with your engines or your disk drives or other materials. Sure, okay, I can at least understand having to go back to the remodeling shop to level up your Bangbus or whatever for the sake of being world accurate, but at least let me see which Bangbus I have in my inventory or something when I go roll for more Bangbus in gacha. And those are all of my initial thoughts on Z3. Again, overall, I really dig this game, and I've onboarded it as yet another one of my 12 gacha games that I'm currently maining. But in the meantime, make sure to like this video and subscribe if you haven't already. I also dual stream to both YouTube and Twitch, twitch.tv/TotoSniper98, so stop by if you want to hang out and talk about gacha. Check out the Patreon if you want to see your name show up at the end of these videos. Until next time, be cool, y'all, and we'll see you guys in the next one.